Backstreet Boys member Nick Carter is denying new allegations that he raped a woman with autism and cerebral palsy when she was a teenager. Shay Ruth filed a sexual battery lawsuit in Nevada, claiming Carter gave her alcohol and assaulted her on the band's tour bus in 2001. She was 17 at the time. Her lawsuit alleges she was in the autograph line when Carter chose her to go to the tour bus, where she claims he forced her to perform sexual acts. She also claims he gave her HPV, a sexually transmitted virus that could cause cancer. And she is not the only accuser to make those claims. In a statement, Carter's attorneys said, unfortunately, for several years now, Miss Ruth has been manipulated into making false allegations about Nick, and those allegations have changed repeatedly and materially over time. Ruth stood by her accusations at an emotional press conference.
Even though I'm autistic and live with cerebral palsy, I believe that nothing has affected me more or had a more lasting impact on my life than what Nick Carter did and said to me. After he raped me, I remember him calling me and grabbing me and leaving bruises on my arm.
Dina, what do you think is the most damaging for Nick Carter? The similarities between the alleged victims and their accusations, like saying that at least two of them got HPV, or just the sheer number of the accusers?
I mean, any time that there is more than one accuser with a similar story, it obviously helps the plaintiff here. This is a civil suit, and that's important to know. The standard of proof is going to be lower than criminal. But this accusation is very old. It's 20 years old. And so she's going to have to show that the other two people are right now Jane Doe's. Were they out in the press? Are they similar because she read their stories? You know, what the HPV, how common is that? You know, so it's those kind of things that he will be able to poke holes in when he goes to defend this case.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Terry, Weinstein, Cosby, Matt Lauer. Based on what you've seen, could Nick Carter join their ranks?
Well, yeah, it's possible. When you have, like Dina said, so many people bringing similar claims, if in fact he is sued criminally and he has been here sued civilly, he could very well be another Weinstein where he is facing the court and he is facing criminal charges and he is facing time in jail. So it really does depend on how strong these witnesses are, if they are going to be able to testify and stand up in front of a jury and tell their stories and have a jury be sympathetic to their causes. Right now, though, we don't know what's going to happen. It doesn't seem as though anything has stuck so far. And frankly, you know, if in fact it is something that people are just saying, his reputation has been affected no matter what. So I hope that the truth comes out at the end of the day in either a criminal or a civil case. Absolutely. Hoping that the truth comes out. Could not have said it better, Terry. Well, two men in Georgia are officially free after spending 25 years in prison thanks to the help of a podcast. Daryl Lee Clark and Kane Joshua Story were just 17 years old when they were arrested for the 1996 shooting death of 15-year-old Brian Bowling. Story told police the victim died during a game of Russian roulette after putting a loaded gun to his head and pulling the trigger. But witness accounts and a confession made investigators charge them with murder. The two would eventually stand trial, and despite a speech-impaired star witness and a lack of forensic evidence, the two were convicted and sentenced to life in prison. The case appeared on Proof podcast last year, featuring two key witnesses taking back their initial testimony. This led the Georgia Innocence Project to get involved, and Clark ended up getting exonerated. Story's sentence was knocked down to time served. The pair will now spend Christmas with their families for the first time in a quarter century. The parents of Takeoff, a well-known rapper killed in a shooting in Houston, are now fighting over who gets control over his estate. The Atlanta rapper reportedly died without a will. According to Georgia law, that means his closest relatives will have control over his money and assets, which includes a large music catalog as well as future record sales. Takeoff made several mentions in his songs that he was raised in a single-parent household by his mother, and there's disagreement over how much his father actually participated in his life. Takeoff was just 28 years old when he died. We spoke with a family law expert who says planning for what happens to your money when you die is important for everyone.
People don't like to think about it because, I mean, who wants to think about when they're going to die? But I mean, I've got news. It's all coming for us at some point. So it does make sense to plan for it And of course, you can change it if your wishes change down the line. But you're really buying peace of mind for the people you leave behind, and it's not just for wealthy people. So even if you have a small estate, even if it's only $15,000, if you want your family members to have immediate access to that money as soon as you pass away, without it getting bled dry by attorneys or fees or taxes or anything like that, then just plan ahead for it. It'll cost a little bit of money up front, but that peace of mind for your family when they're going through the grieving process of not having to deal with these legal issues really will be priceless.
New information from a Houston police warrant gives us more details on the shooting investigation. In an 8-page warrant filed on Tuesday, police say Takeoff was shot by 2 medium-caliber bullets, but those bullets did not match up with a gun that the suspect, Patrick Clark, supposedly used to kill Takeoff. And with partygoers not quick to speak up, detectives want to search the suspect's truck for evidence of the fatal bullets. Police also note in the warrant that there was more than one shooter that night. Investigators believe the second shooter, identified as Willie Bland, was associated with Migos group mate Quavo, who accompanied Takeoff at the party. His bullets did not hit anyone, according to the report. Bland has not been charged in the incident, and Clark maintains his innocence as he's held in jail on a $2 million bond. Terry, who do you think has the strongest claim to Takeoff's assets now that he's passed, and who might argue that theirs is stronger?
Well, it's unfortunate that there wasn't a will, because you want the assets to be distributed in accordance to what he may have wanted. But here, if there are no children, it will be given to the parents, and then later it might be given in part to the siblings. And what it's going to do is split it up equally, unless there is some claim and she's able to prove on the mother's part that there was no intention to have anything go to the father. So we'll see what happens, but it'll be probated, and each state has separate probate laws where there's succession. And if in fact she has to fight to get more of that money, she will have to provide testimony and provide witnesses, and the father will have to do the same thing. Hopefully at the end of the day they'll be able to work it out with having an agreement in place, as opposed to having to go to court and argue over the details.
Yeah, it kind of makes me want to go and check my will as soon as I can. Well, Dina, did Clark's case just get better, seeing as the bullets don't match his gun? Should his bail also be reduced because of it?
I mean, his case absolutely got better for both either reducing his bail or perhaps getting his charges dismissed outright. It sounds like what the police and prosecutors are saying is that video footage shows Clark shooting in the direction of Takeoff, and that's why they think he killed him. But if you cannot find the gun that matches the bullets, their case just gets a lot weaker. That's why they're trying to get the search warrant to search the truck, and perhaps they will find another gun there that could tie him. Otherwise, his defense case definitely got stronger.
The defense attorney also says maybe they find a gun that doesn't match the bullets and he gets released, and it's a whole other case altogether. But we'll see how that plays out. Our verdict watch continues. Disgraced Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein awaits his fate in Los Angeles as deliberations continue in his sex assault trial. 8 women testified against Weinstein in this trial, where he faces 7 sexual assault charges and a possible life sentence. Weinstein did not take the stand in his own defense, but his team argued that the accusers were either untruthful or had consensual sexual relationships with him. This is Weinstein's second sex assault trial after being convicted on similar charges 2 years ago in New York. He is serving a 23-year sentence in that case, and an appeal was recently granted. In Los Angeles, the jury panel has been at it for more than 5 days, with no questions so far on their end.